I got to tell you, I got a chuckle this morning watching the AM Joy show, and some of the comments were so ridiculous and unthoughtful that I had to actually start laughing. Now, I did a video on Donald Trump and his black, he called them leaders, I call them his followers, on the first day of Black History Month. And I'm going to be honest with you, I didn't listen to every single word he said during this particular photo op, and that's exactly what it is. And going back this morning, something struck me, so I went back and listened to it again. And I'm going to point something out to you regarding what he said. Here we go.
Last month we celebrated the life of the Reverend Martin Luther King Jr., whose incredible example is unique in American history. You read all about Dr. Martin Luther King a week ago when someone...
Now, that's what I missed the first time. He said that you read all about Dr. Martin Luther King last week. Okay. To me, that seems to indicate that only because of that statuette or bust controversy that people went out and read about Dr. Martin Luther King. Maybe that's when he went out and read about Dr. Martin Luther King. But a lot of us had already seen videos, read about him, heard his speeches. So it wasn't necessary for us to go last week to read about Dr. Martin Luther King. So I don't know where he's getting these written remarks from, but whoever it is, they need to pretty much read what they wrote, and then for good measure, maybe they want to run it past somebody black. And I mean somebody really black. I'm not talking about the lackeys that he's got around him, because they're pretty much going to sign off on anything that's put in front of them. So anyway, let me continue on this particular clip.
Said I took the statue out of my office, and it turned out that that was fake news.
You know, it's all about him. Wednesday marked the start of the first Black History Month in 8 years without an African-American president in the White House. But never fear, the new president made sure there were still African-Americans in the White House to mark the day. In fact, Donald Trump managed to fill an entire table with black people who made their own black history by being around among the proud, the few who actually support him. You may recognize some of them, because before they were rewarded with a chair at Donald Trump's White House table, they were in the hot seat right here on AM Joy.
Mr. Trump has had a continued engagement and relationship for a very long time with the African-American community.
The birther issue came out of Hillary Clinton's
No, it didn't. No, it didn't.
Yes, it did.
No.
Yes, it
That's
did.
just actually factually wrong. You can't, you know what? Even a pastor cannot just make things up on this show.
I have to debunk this myth that Donald Trump does not have broad support across different races, religion, and gender, because those 8 million people are some of the most diverse Americans in this country.
You know that the Republican primaries so far have been more than 90% white. They have not been diverse.
Well, that's not factually wrong. The birther issue was first raised by Hillary Clinton's
No, it was not.
Mr. Trump, like he said, wrote up those remarks
You're
himself.
saying he wrote those remarks?
That's exactly.
You're telling us that you think that he wrote those remarks.
Donald Trump is the only one in this race that's going to help turn around communities in the inner cities with African Americans.
So you're trying
You know
to
what?
tell me that
We're
Donald
out of
Trump...
time. Sir, I respect you as a pastor and as a therapist, but you're not going to come on and just make things up.
Yeah, see, they were all laughing just like I was. Oh, and just in case you didn't know it, it was a white woman out of the Texas delegation that first came up with the idea of birtherisms, and she was the one that started putting it forth within the Texas delegation. She was subsequently released, okay, from the Texas delegation for making those remarks. So it was not Hillary Clinton that first brought them up. Anyway.
We got many details from those surrogates on how exactly Donald Trump would approach policy solutions for African American communities. But this week, we finally got an inkling of what might be in store. I'm bringing my panel in for more on that next.
Okay, folks. Joy's going to bring in her panel, but I want you to pay special attention to Bruce LeVell. He is in charge of Donald Trump's national diversity portion of his campaign. He doesn't have an official function, obviously, now within the Trump administration, but this guy is still spewing the bullshit rhetoric of the Trump people. And, you know, I really get tired. I get really so tired of all of these various Trump surrogates and sellouts. And I'm going to say how I feel. I really feel that they've sold out, because anytime you try to engage them in any meaningful conversation and ask them for any substantiated facts, I mean actual facts that you can go to and see, they can never come up with any. So anyway, here's the segment with the panelists on Joy Show.
Frederick Douglass is an example of somebody who's done an amazing job and is being recognized more and more, I notice.
Now for the record, Frederick Douglass died in 1895 and was so widely recognized before his death that, according to one historian, he was actually the most photographed man of his time. And no, Mike Pence. Abraham Lincoln has President's Day. You try again next year. But that's all just history. Back here in the present, we've got some idea of the president's approach to an African-American policy agenda, tucked away in that draft executive order that would bar any immigrants who might need public assistance like Medicaid. There's a line ordering a report on how the money saved from blocking those immigrants could be invested in, quote, inner city communities and disadvantaged youth. In other words, robbing Peter to pay Paul, or more accurately, robbing poor immigrants to pay poor African Americans. And back with me is Teray, and joining me now, Wade Henderson of the Leadership Conference on Civil Rights and Human Rights, Bruce LeVell of the National Diversity Coalition for Trump, and Alicia Garza, co-founder of Black Lives Matter. Thank you all for being here. Wade, I'm going to start with you on this.
Thanks.
This idea of trying to entice African Americans by saying, we will take from these poor immigrants and give to your communities. Your thoughts?
It's really disgusting, Joy. You know, alternative facts are now the new watchword of the Trump administration, so it's not surprising that the real Donald Trump might discover the real Frederick Douglass, and at least a one-sided bromance might begin. But this idea of taking the most famous Republican of the 19th century, second only to Abraham Lincoln, and pairing him with the newly famous Republican of the 21st century simply won't work. The idea that immigrants who are now qualified for Medicaid might somehow be cheating the system is simply totally bogus. You now have asylees and refugees, that is, people who've applied for asylum and refugee status that qualify for Medicaid or the Child Health Insurance Program, but there are restrictions on most immigrants for up to 5 years before they could qualify, and even then, those who sponsor them are ultimately responsible in the event that they wrongly get government benefits. What's really the problem, though, is that Trump is focusing on distractions rather than the issues at hand. And both because of his statements and his recent appointments, the Trump administration has become, in my view, a clear and present danger to African Americans' constitutional right to vote. And I can cite 3 examples. The first is his remark about the massive fraud that occurred in the election, which is total nonsense. Second, his appointment of Jeff Sessions to head the Department of Justice, given his history, speaks for itself. And now the appointment or the nomination of Neil Gorsuch for a seat on the Supreme Court is deeply troubling. Before he was appointed to the court, Gorsuch worked as the principal deputy of the Associate Attorney General in the Justice Department, responsible for supervising voting rights litigation. And in 2005, he intervened in a case involving the Georgia voter ID law and prevented career attorneys from bringing a case in a dubious and bogus way. That issue needs to be examined closely, and it was not looked at before he was appointed to the court.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for bringing that up, because we do need to come back and talk a lot more about Jefferson Sessions. But I want to come back to this notion of pitting immigrants. And by the way, a lot of immigrants are black, but pitting immigrants, non-white immigrants, and African Americans against each other. And Bruce, I want to play for you a couple of the ways in which Donald Trump has spoken to and about African Americans and get your response. Let's play Donald Trump back in August of 2016, speaking before a white crowd in Dimondale, Michigan, but speaking about black people.
The improved refugee screening standards I have proposed will save countless billions of dollars. We will invest a portion of the money saved in a jobs program for inner city youth.
Okay.
Now, in case you didn't know it, Dimondale, Michigan was like 95% white, and you did not see a single black person in Donald Trump's background. Let me give you a bit more clarification. People that were there looked in the audience, and out of maybe 200 people that or more that were in that audience, they were able to count 5 black people. So that's not even 5%. That's like 2.5% of the audience were black people. And I'm assuming they were black people that were in support of Donald Trump, not anybody that had any serious questions of him.
Now let's listen to that same month, Donald Trump speaking to African Americans, speaking about African Americans again at that same rally, and saying what Hillary Clinton would do versus himself.
Hillary Clinton would rather provide a job to a refugee from overseas than to give that job to unemployed African American youth in cities like Detroit.
So Bruce, do you have any discomfort whatsoever with this rhetoric of trying to pit refugees, people are coming here seeking asylum, and African Americans against each other, not to mention doing it in front of an all-white audience?
Well, thanks, Joy. Thanks for having me. And
sure.
The Falcons will win Sunday, by the way, just for the record. Well, I disagree, and I will tell you this. There's nothing wrong with the president wanting to put America first. He has been, no president, for example, in the inauguration speech has been so direct in terms of speaking and caring about the African-American community.
Wait, what did he say that talked about caring about the African? I mean, that was a dark and dour speech. I didn't hear anything about caring for the African-American community.
Trying to finish, respectfully. The Democrat regime for many years have promised the same old, and has never accomplished anything.
Okay,
so to speak directly to a system that hasn't had any help except a bunch of false promises, I think it's a fair call to say, hey, let's put America first and put more infrastructure and resources in our inner city communities. There's nothing wrong with that.
Okay, so first of all, just as a point of order, we say Democratic because that's the name of the party here. We don't use the pejorative, right? We just say Democratic. But what in Donald Trump's inauguration speech? I mean, I remember it was pretty short, it was pretty dour. Did he say that talked about caring for African American communities?
Well, to stop the murder rate, for example, Joy. I mean, it's out of control. We have 662 murders in the 2016 in Chicago alone. To speak and say, hey, enough's enough. Stop killing our black kids and our children and communities. That's no president has ever spoke like that in inauguration, to speak directly and have care about our children in our inner cities, especially in the African American community. I think that's humongous. That's huge.
Wow. Okay, let's let Alicia respond to that. Did you find that to be caring and positive toward the African American community? That kind of rhetoric, Alicia?
No, I mean, to be honest with you. Yeah, that would be me. To be honest with you, I think that what it was actually condescending. And I do think that black communities across the country and throughout the world can see right through this kind of rhetoric. Let's be clear that immigrants aren't the ones who are reshaping the economy. It's corporations who have reshaped the economy and made it so that there is a crisis in joblessness. There's also a crisis in terms of driving wages and the quality of work. It's a race to the bottom. So I didn't find it at all in any way did I find there to be any kind of concern from Donald Trump about black communities. And let's be very clear, he hasn't been concerned about black communities except to criminalize them. We haven't forgotten about the Central Park Five. We haven't forgotten about the comments that Donald Trump has made about black people. And I can't quite wrap my head around how it is that there can be people defending his record in the black community when he actually doesn't have one.
I'm sorry. You talk about America first. I'm American. I've never lived anywhere else, right? My family is fully American. I don't feel embraced by this. I don't feel anyone saying, we're looking out for my interests. When the president is out tweeting about Milo's right to speak at Berkeley, but then he's attacking John Lewis's right to speak and Hamilton's right to speak, I don't feel America first. I feel a certain America first. This attack on black crime in Chicago, this is not the prime thing that black America needs dealt with. We need the war on drugs dealt with. We need the wealth inequality dealt with. We need public schooling better. We need policing violence dealt with better. He's dealing with some black people, and 40% of the murders are committed by 0.5%, but some black people are killing others in Chicago. No recognition that the murder rate in Chicago is about half of what it was 20 years ago. So that is actually a massive success story in terms of the long-term history of Chicago. But all we hear is about, as Elise here referenced, our criminality, right? Our problematic nature for the nation. Does America first include me?
Yeah, and well, Bruce, your response to that?
Well, like you said before, for a president to come out and be so profound on the inauguration speech, to speak directly into...
But you're not answering what Teray said. Okay, but no, because Bruce, we only have a limited amount of time, and if you're going to give a speech, I need you to answer what Teray just said.
Well, the president's made it very clear about the money he wants to put in a lot of these particular communities.
Okay, now here go the alternative facts, because the president hasn't spoken about any money that he's looking to target towards the urban, inner city, or black communities. So what he's going to start talking about are alternative facts. None of the stuff that he's going to say regarding what Donald Trump is supposedly going to do are true. None of the stuff is documented anywhere. Trust me, I have been on this, and there's nothing there. You could go to Donald Trump's website regarding what he wants to do for the African American community. He speaks in overall broad terms. He's got no agenda as far as helping the HBCUs, no agenda as far as reducing black unemployment. He basically speaks in broad brush terms with no specifics. And even on his website, there are no specifics. So what this guy is going to spew here is a bunch of bullshit, and Joy is going to press him on it.
How much
that hasn't been done before. And to mention, we've only been 2 weeks, the president's been 2 weeks into his presidency, and has moved mountains.
What mountains does he move? What mountains does he move?
Well, the money that's going to come into these communities, which he is going to do in terms of...
No, but sir, what money? You're inventing money that you don't have any factual backup for.
Well,
what money?
The way it works is when you remove resources from other countries and other resources and put it back into America's interest, we have money. Instead of pouring trillions of dollars into wars, which he spoke against,
thank you for being
and putting it back into America and not into foreign affairs, when you lower the tax rate from a small business owner like myself from 37% to 16, 17%, where I can create more jobs and create more jobs in the community, those are very strong messages that's going to help and resonate the American people.
Okay, Bruce, we're out of time. Donald Trump has not proposed any of that. So I just want to get our viewers to understand that, just when you hear things on TV, you're going to hear people say things that may be what Bruce would like to have happen. Those proposals are not on the table. They have not been proposed. No, they have not. They've not. I mean, that's been all day.
Stay tuned.
Donald Trump. All right, but anyway, thank you for coming. Teray's going to stick around. Wade Henderson, Bruce.
Okay, and again, it's exactly what most of these Republicans, and in particular these black Republicans, they always spew this bullshit rhetoric, okay, with nothing to back their statements up with. We need to do something. I'm just getting so tired. We need to do something about these guys, and the only thing that I can think of that we can do that's not criminal per se is just to try to keep these guys off of mainstream media where they spew their bullshit rhetoric, and then filibuster until you run out of time as far as trying to question them.